Welcome to the critique. So this submission is a really extensive look at various interviews and political analysis, covering everything from Dutch politics and a major crime case over there, to U.S. immigration, AI debates, and even, rocket tech.
Quite the mix.
It is. Let's dive right in. Okay, look, the amount of research here, it's genuinely impressive. I mean, the quality of the source material is clear, but the first big area we need to talk about is, well, the lack of a clear connecting thread. The material really suffers from a severe deficit in thematic unity, kind of spanning geopolitical, tech, national politics, legal stuff, all without really linking them.
Yeah.
The sheer breadth, it's jarring. You've got these really high-stakes, complex topics next to each other, like Fleur Agema's specific issues with the NCTV and AV, Link, healthcare stuff, the political aggression she faced.
Right.
And then, boom, you're into a deep dive on the VDD's internal split, the classic liberal versus the D66 wing. The reader's left wondering, okay, what's the actual subject here?
I absolutely agree. That lack of focus is, well, it's a lot to handle. And it gets even more complicated, I think, with these really dramatic shifts to topics that feel like they come out of nowhere, total non sequiturs.
Exactly.
For instance, we go from that very specific Dutch political stuff straight into the real nitty-gritty of the Marco Borsato legal defense. You talking about judicial tunnel vision, that judge's mistake on Twitter, the 500 hours of police wiretaps that weren't looked at.
So specific.
Super specific. And then, without even a pause, we pivot completely to Elon Musk talking about the woke mind virus in AI.
Right, the Google Gemini example.
Yeah, where it supposedly prefers misgendering someone over preventing a nuclear war scenario. It honestly feels like hitting the reset button every couple of paragraphs.
We really need to find sort of a gravitational center for this piece. So the suggestion here is pretty critical. Define maybe one or two core, high-level themes before putting all the material together. Make sure every single piece, every excerpt, actually serves that main idea.
Yeah, that's the key.
Right now, it kind of feels like every interesting bit of research you uncovered just got thrown in.
And building on that, let's think about how having that clear theme acts like a filter, right? So if you picked, say, the crisis of societal trust in Western institutions as your theme,
Okay.
suddenly a lot of these disparate pieces actually start to connect. You could link Agema's shock over that whole NCTNAVAO conspiracy idea to Musk's claims about, federal zombie payments and fraudulent Medicaid or Social Security transfers.
Right, the financial angle.
And then connect that to the defense in the Borsato case, arguing the prosecution cared more about getting a conviction than, Wahrheitsfindung, finding the actual truth.
Ah, okay, I see. That creates a much stronger, focused argument. It becomes about systems failing, essentially.
Exactly. It's about institutional failure. And then what that filter lets you do
Is cut things out?
precisely. You can surgically remove content that, however interesting it is, just doesn't serve that central theme. You could easily leave out, say, the specific thrust numbers for the Raptor engines on Starship. Or that deep dive into the CDA's history with Catholic voters. Because, they don't directly support the institutional failure thesis.
So that's step one. Focus. Really focus those impressive research efforts.
Absolutely. Focus is what gives it impact.
Okay, so that brings us neatly to the next big challenge, because even if you nail the theme, the order things appear in here is, it's causing some serious whiplash for the reader.
Yeah, the sequencing.
Exactly. Our second point is about that jarring and illogical sequencing. The abrupt sequencing just stops the reader from building any context, making it feel less like a cohesive analysis and more like, a mixtape of interesting but unconnected clips.
Definitely felt that.
The flow forces you to leap, across continents, across different political systems without any warning. You spent several quite tense paragraphs breaking down the U.S. border situation.
Right, including the point about Hillary and Obama maybe changing their stance because of voting incentives?
Yeah, and the policy detail about non-citizens counting in the census for apportionment. Important stuff.
But just as the reader starts to get their head around those national, even geopolitical implications of U.S. immigration,
Wham!
wham, you're suddenly transported right into the, hyper-local specifics of Dutch city politics.
Talking about PvdA grown links being the biggest party only in Amsterdam?
And even naming the specific school used as a polling station, the Theo Thyssen School.
It's too much.
It's a huge cognitive leap, right? Geography, political system, scale, it all changes instantly. It forces the reader to stop thinking about the ideas and start trying to figure out where they even are conceptually.
And it's not just about geography. There are pacing problems too, especially when you interrupt these really high-concept tech discussions just as they're getting going.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. We go from talking about the whole philosophy behind Starship's development, exploring the corners of the box, the amazing soft landings, even with missing heat tiles, the incredible speeds like 17,000 miles per hour.
Which is fascinating stuff.
Totally fascinating. But then immediately, like the very next sentence, we're analyzing a completely different kind of threat. These extreme activists hijacking infrastructure.
Ah, right. That switch is pretty severe. You go from complex aerospace engineering
Yep. To discussing the political and tech threat from far-left activists in San Francisco, the ones near Silicon Valley, creating what you called information superweapons.
It's whiplash again.
It is. The ideas themselves are strong, both of them, but putting them right next to each other without any kind of bridge or transition, they end up competing for attention instead of building on each other or supporting a larger narrative.
So the suggestion here has to be about the architecture, the structure. Create really clear macro sections. You could label them maybe national governance challenges and technological and ideological conflict, something like that.
Okay.
And then introduce subsections within those, using clear thematic bridges to manage the scope. You have to actually guide the reader through these complex shifts. Yeah, lead them through it. So a concrete example, maybe restructuring the U.S. political commentary. Instead of just dropping facts, you could build it around a core idea, like the soft crime party ideology you mentioned.
How would that work?
Well, you could link the argument against prosecuting drug dealers, which you noted is tied to keeping the funding flowing for the homeless industrial complex, right? That $900,000 per drug zombie figure.
Mm-hmm.
Link that to the broader idea of suicidal empathy driving policies. Not just in the U.S., but maybe draw a parallel to Europe, too.
Ah. Like that reference you had to Ireland's prime minister? Criticizing protesters instead of addressing a serious crime involving an illegal migrant?
Exactly like that. That thematic link, suicidal empathy, or however you frame it, gives the reader the context they need. They can process the individual data points because they see how they fit into a bigger picture, instead of just getting hit with isolated facts.
Right. It turns the collection of clips into an actual coherent argument.
That's the goal. Coherence.
Okay, finally, let's talk about significance and relevance. And this ties right back to that first point about thematic focus, actually. There are several really hyper-specific references in here that, while they might be factually accurate and detailed, probably only resonate with a very niche expert audience.
And they end up distracting from the main points.
Exactly. They dilute the relevance for a broader audience, even an informed one. We see this with some of the political history examples, like focusing on the really precise legal history of the CDA in the Netherlands.
The Lubbers era stuff?
Yeah, detailing the shift away from the Catholic South after Lubbers or Bontebal-specific fatsoen or decency problem. I mean, that's only really relevant if the entire piece is specifically about the internal workings of the CDA.
Which it clearly isn't.
Right. If your goal is high-level analysis across different domains, this level of granularity just becomes noise.
And the risk there, I think, is that you accidentally create this sort of unnecessary gatekeeping. You want to show you've done the research, you know your stuff.
Sure.
But these super specific details force most readers to pause, maybe go look something up, instead of actually engaging with your argument. We saw it in the legal case discussion, too. Some details felt way too granular for this kind of overview.
Like what, specifically?
Well, like the specifics of the conflicting expert reports from Lausanne and Maastricht about whether the victim's diary was authentic.
Ah, right. Very technical legal detail.
Or pinpointing the exact moment a judge apparently used their personal X account, Twitter, to comment on a potential civil claim.
Okay, yeah.
Those details assume everyone reading has this deep, shared understanding of Dutch law, specific political figures, recent controversies, and given the huge range of topics covered elsewhere, that's just not going to be the case. The reader gets tangled in the weeds before they can even see the shape of the forest.
So the solution here is about distillation. It's about pulling out the high-level insight, the operational lesson, or maybe the philosophical conflict from these very specific events.
And then phrasing it differently?
Yeah, expressing it in terms that are more universally understandable. Focus on the lesson learned from the event, rather than just recounting the precise event itself.
That's the key to making it transferable, isn't it? Making the insight relevant beyond its original context. Like, for instance, the Starship stuff. Instead of listing the 33 Raptor 3 engines...
Which is cool, but maybe not essential here.
Right. Frame the whole Starship development process as, say, a case study in intentional risk-taking and super rapid iteration. That's a powerful business or innovation philosophy, right?
Absolutely. That insight applies anywhere.
Exactly. The thrust numbers don't matter for that point. Or take the conflict between Agema and Wilders you mentioned.
The hospital issue?
Yeah. Instead of getting bogged down in the specific politics around the Zuiderland Hospital in Heerlee.
Which most readers won't know or need to know.
Precisely. Reframe it as a classic example of an ideological clash. You've got a minister trying to implement mandated, maybe unpopular, national policy like NATO rules on casualty care, versus a powerful party leader pushing a very specific local, regional agenda, keeping that particular hospital open or funded. Focus on the friction between those political roles. That's a dynamic people can understand anywhere, regardless of the hospital's name.
That makes the specific details work for the argument instead of getting in the way of it.
Exactly. They become illustrations, not obstacles.
Okay, so wrapping up, this compilation is, as we said, incredibly detailed and well-researched. But to really maximize its impact and make it a better experience for the reader, we're suggesting focusing on 3 main areas.
Right.
First, really sharpen that thematic focus. Second, establish a much more logical structure and flow between topics. And third, do some aggressive editing for those hyper-specific details that aren't really transferable.
And just to recap the actionable steps we talked about. First, consolidate around a central theme, maybe something like the crisis of trust or the clash of ideologies, whatever fits best.
Okay.
Second, group the content logically. Use clear sections, maybe separating U.S. and Dutch politics or isolating the tech and crime discussions. Create those bridges.
Makes sense.
And third, really focus on extracting the universal insights from the specific events. Ask, what's the bigger lesson here rather than just reporting the granular facts?
Excellent. Well, we really hope this constructive feedback helps you refine what's clearly a very compelling collection of material. Please feel free to revise it based on this and submit it again. We'd be very interested to see how we can help make it even stronger next time.